Good morning, folks. My name is Jimmy Bashar with the ISO Stakeholder Affairs Group. Thanks so much for those who are able to join us today on this invite-only call for our participating transmission owners to discuss the latest transmission access charge, or our TAC, settlements process improvements. Most importantly, of course, we hope you're all staying safe and healthy during all that is going on with the current events out there. For today, our agenda will be to discuss the current problem statement, followed by a discussion on our current process. And then, of course, I will discuss the proposed process updates to our BPM and reference documents. We are joined today, of course, by Karen Vaughn, who is leading our presentation today, as well as Charles Cook, Meghna Khatri, and Madhuri Rapasubramanian from our Market Settlement Production team, as well as Heather Kelly. And with that, I will pass it over to Karen.
Thank you, Jimmy. Good morning. This is Karen Vaughn with the California ISO. I work in the Market Settlements Production team. Thank you, everybody, for joining this call and allowing us to present to you our proposed tax processes. So today's call, we're really just talking about the process for how the tax rates are submitted to us, and we will go over. The presentation was sent out last week, so if you received the invite, it is attached to the invite. We will be going over some of the problem statements with the current process, also walk through with you show you what the current process looks like, and then our proposed solution. So problem statement number 1. Currently, there is no standardized process for receiving the rate changes. The notifications regarding the changes come from internal and external. So sometimes we get them from our legal department, sometimes we get them from our contract department, sometimes we get them directly from the PTOs. Additionally, the rate information is usually buried inside the detail of the FERC filing, and in order to pull out the rates, we have to read through all of the filing to try to figure out what the change was, what was filed. So this, of course, is prone to error. And searching through the FERC website for these filings can also sometimes be challenging. The second problem that we are encountering with the current process is there is no standardized processing implementation timeline. Changes can occur throughout the year. Usually as most of you guys know, the busiest time of the year is usually right now to the end of, to about February, March timeframe because of all of the annual filings that everybody is doing right now. Another challenge that we are currently facing is that we do not know when the filings do come in. FERC, once a filing is filed, FERC does have up to 60 days to respond to that filing. So that also requires a lot of maintenance on our side to keep track of these various filings. Because of this, we are processing various filings multiple times a month, which is inefficient. So multiple iterations of various rate changes, and in exchange, multiple notices are going out. The third problem that we would like to address is, again, because there's multiple iterations that are going on, we are also sending out a lot of emails between us and the PTOs, and a lot of it may get buried in your emails. So once a rate has been implemented, we usually send it to the PTOs for the PTOs to review it and then send it back to us before we implement it. And then once the rate is implemented, we also send out a formal notice to the market participants to give them a heads up that the rates are changing. And in addition to that, we are also sending out an email to all of the PTOs to provide them with the same information that's already provided in the market notice. So with that, does anybody have any questions in regard to the 3 problems that we are hoping to address today?
Thanks again, Karen. As a reminder, folks, please push #2 if you'd like to ask a question. All right, hearing none.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about the current process. With the current process, we receive, as I've indicated in the problem statement, we receive our notification from our legal department, and we also get them from contracts, and we also get them from the PTOs. With our legal department, because they are subscribed to so many of these notices, there usually may be a lag between when we may get these notices. So this creates this creates a challenge because there's usually a lag between when the filing was actually submitted to FERC or accepted to FERC and when the ISO gets notified to implement these rates. So once we get the notification either from our legal contracts or the PTOs, we then go and we search the FERC website to find that filing or the FERC order. We download those documents, and then we review the documents to understand what the changes are, and from that we extract the information that we need to implement the rates. We then take a copy of the template that we have posted to the website, and then we make adjustments to that template to apply the new rates for that specific PTO. Again, this process is repeated for both the TAC and the WAC. So as most of you are already familiar with, the template that I am referring to is this template here. So once a filing is submitted, we review the FERC filing, and then we take the components that are within the filing and we update it so that so that we can then calculate the new rate, which we then upload to the system and post to the participants. Then what we do once we take that information from the filing and update the template, we then take that template and we send it out to the relevant PTOs and have them review it. And once they review it, we usually give them a 2-week notice, and then they review it and send it back to us. Once we have the approval from the PTOs to proceed, we then create the records that we need to update the settlement system. Then we generate a PDF version of the rates calculation spreadsheet that I just showed you, and then also prepare the market notices and also coordinate with our communications team so that we can send the market notice out to the market participants. Once that is completed, we then upload the rates into the settlement systems and post the rate calculations worksheet to the CAISO website. Again, we do this for both the TAC and for the WAC each time, and then once that is done, we send an email to all of the PTOs indicating that the rates have been updated, and then we provide the relevant settlement processing date. So before I go into the proposed process, does anybody have any questions in regards to our current process?
We have no questions in the queue.
Thank you. So here's our proposal. So I'm going to go over the proposal for each of the problem statements that we have. Again, in the problem statement that I had indicated, we had no standardized process for receiving the rate changes. So what we are proposing is for the PTOs to populate a template that we will provide and have the PTOs submit the rate adjustments to the CAISO. So what they will need to do is take the template that we have provided, attach to the template the relevant for filings or order. And then, so here is an example of what the template looks like. This is, everybody is familiar with this template. This is the same as we basically extracted the information from what we post on the website. So this, you have all seen this one template here. We have basically taken just this one portion of it and put it into a Excel template, which is pretty easy to fill out. You would, once you have filed with FERC or have received your order, you would just populate the information here and then send it to us. So here is an example of what the form would look like once it's filled out. And then what would you do with the form? If you have access to CIDI, we're asking you to send the template along with the FERC filing or the order and submit an IMS ticket with the subject TAC Rate Adjustment Requests, and that will then route it to the appropriate group. We will get it, and then we will process it. And by doing that, because you're aware of the change a lot sooner than we are, it gives us time to process it, and then it avoids that lag. Then for those PTOs who do not have access to CIDI, all you have to do is send an email to the service desk. It's servicedesk@CAISO.com. In your subject, please put TAC Rate Adjustment Request, and then in the body, please add in the verbiage that we have here. Please create a ticket for the following request. Please insert this phrase in the CIDI subject line, TAC Rate Adjustment Request. Please attach the respective forms in the CIDI case. Send this email to Service Desk, and once Service Desk receives it, they will then create the CIDI IMS ticket, and then it will be routed to our group for processing. So here I have provided for you an example of what the email would look like. It's relatively simple. Again, send it to Service Desk, CC whoever you want to see, attach the relevant files, and then just put in your subject the following items. So with that, we would like to open up for questions in regard to the proposed process for problem statement number 1.
And just as a reminder for those dialed in, you can press #2 on your telephone keypad to place yourself into the question queue. Currently not seeing any questions over the line.
Okay.
All right. Actually, one question has just come in.
Okay.
All right, your line's been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Lynette Kozlowski from PG&E, and I personally am unfamiliar with the CIDI system. How is it typically used, and who might I ask at PG&E about access to it?
So CIDI is the application that we use to communicate. Well, it's one of the applications that we use for the market participants to be able to submit inquiries. So if your settlements team would be very much familiar with it, also your customer service team would also be. There's two sides of this application. There's the side for the IMS tickets for you to be able to submit inquiries to the inquiries to the CAISO, so that that then gets routed to our customer service team and then gets routed to the various business units to be able to address your issues. Then there's also the settlements dispute system, which is also part of CIDI, where your settlements team would create a ticket and submit that to the settlements our dispute team for them to review any disputes that you may have. If you need assistance with it, our customer service team can reach out to you.
Okay. So I hope this is okay to ask a second question.
Yes.
The new process that you're proposing would have the PTOs providing the rate information in the template, but you're also asking for supporting documentation, which I assume would be a FERC filing and then also FERC's acceptance of the new rate elements. So it's really two pieces, yes?
Yes, so the template and your supporting document. If it's just an informational filing, you would provide your informational filing along with the template for what components of the TAC rate is changing. If it is, like, for example, your TRBAA, which requires FERC acceptance, you would attach the acceptance.
And they may come, for instance, an informational filing may come at a different interval than the TRBA. Is that your expectation?
That is correct.
Okay.
They in most cases, they actually come in different times.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, with that, there are no further questions over the line.
Thank you. So next, I would like to talk about our proposal for problem statement number 2. As I indicated in the problem statement, currently there is no standardized time for when the rates are implemented. As they come in, we try to get to them as soon as possible. So what we would like to propose is to create a standardized timeline. And so basically, we would set the schedule so that when you submit the time, you would know when to expect the when you would expect the CAISO to turn around and implement the new rates. Here is an example of the timeline that we will be proposing. For example, any submissions that we receive by December 31st of 2021, we would have them processed by January 15th of 2021. And then for the next example would be that anything that is received by January 25th of 2021, we would have it implemented by February 8th of 2021. Again, then same thing for round 3, and then any subsequent would be by anything received by the 25th, we would have it processed within 10 business days of receipt. This way, by creating a timeline, you guys can submit it as soon as you're aware of it. You can submit it. It will come into our queue. We will then process them and then that way you know when to expect the rate to be implemented. Right now, when a rate is implemented, there's really no set time. Once we get it, we try to get to it as soon as possible. Sometimes there may be a lag of a month. Sometimes there may be a lag of a little bit more. Again, that's due to the first problem that we indicated, where we don't have a standardized process for when the rates come in. So we're hoping by our proposal of 1 and 2, we are able to address the problem, and then that way, as the rates come in, it sets expectations for both internal and external. Does anybody have any questions in regards to problem statement number 2, the proposed process for problem statement number 2?
All right, looks like we have 2 questions actually. Okay, first question. Your line's been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Pat Hayes. I work with LS Power representing Desert Link. And I just wanted to ask regarding the processed on dates. So how does that impact when CAISO actually begins collecting those rates?
So the process on date really defines when the rates are uploaded to the system, and so the process on date would be when what settlement statements are calculated on that process date. So if your rates are effective, let's say January 1st, on January 15th of 2021, what statements we will be processing and then going forward. So if we've already processed, like in this example here, by then we'll be in MSTT, so we would have already processed the trade dates for some of the trade dates for the T+9B initial statements. Anything after that will be either on the 9B or then it will go captured on the T+70B, and you can line it up with the payments calendar.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. There was a second question.
Yeah, next question. Your line's been unmuted. Please go ahead. And please make sure that your audio device is not on mute.
So I thank you for the reminder about the mute button. So just following up on the last question and answer, I assume that even though there may be a lag in the processed on date, the ISO is still going to presumably be able to apply the new rates on the effective date that FERC grants. In other words, yes. I know there's a number of the utilities that have December 1st filings at FERC for rates that would become effective on January 1st. But if I understand this calendar, it wouldn't be processed until the 15th. But that's not to say the new rates wouldn't be in effect on January 1st prior.
Yes, that is correct. So here I'm actually skipping ahead to the next slide. Here is an example of the market notice that we sent out for the rates that were implemented on August. This was around August timeframe. As you can see from here, these rates were effective on June 13th of 2020. And what we provide for you here in the market notice is when these rates were implemented, what trade dates and what settlement cycles they will impact. And the effective date, the recalculation, as you can see from the very last entry here, it will include the effective date of January 13th, 2020.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
I'm not seeing any other of the lines.
Thank you. So going on to our proposed process for problem statement number 3. Again, with this process, there's many emails that goes back and forth between the CAISO and the market participants. So one of the, our proposal is to eliminate some of the emails that goes back and forth. We all get a lot of emails and sometimes they get buried. So we're hoping to make this process a little bit more efficient. And so specifically, we are targeting the final email that we send out to the PTOs. Again, once a rate is implemented, we provide in a formal market notice to the entire market that the rates will be effective on a specific date, and then we provide to you the settlement statements that will have the updated rate. In addition to that market notice, we also send a courtesy email to all of the PTOs just to give them a heads up. So what we want to do is we want to keep that market notice because the market notice, again, goes out to a much broader audience. And what we are proposing is to eliminate the emails that we send directly to the PTOs because, again, the information that we are sending in the email to the PTOs is exactly the same as what we are sending in the market notice. So in that example that I had just showed you, this is the market notice that we send out to the participants, and this is pretty much all of the same information that we send out to the PTO. So what we are proposing is to keep this notification and requesting to eliminate the email to the PTOs. And for those of you who are not getting market notices, you can simply sign up to get the notice by going to CAISO.com. So here's CAISO.com, and then go to Stay Informed, and then under Subscriptions and Notices, the market notice will come out through the daily briefing, and then you can just click here, and there's a subscribe button. So from here, fill out your information, and this will then subscribe you to the various categories that you are interested in. Okay, I will take any questions that you have in regards to problem statement number 3.
All right, and once again, that is pound and then 2 on your telephone keypad to put yourself in the question queue. Looks like we have 1 so far.
Go ahead.
Okay, your line's been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Scott from the City of Anaheim. In regards to communication to all emails for the PTOs, what happens if you've got an issue where what they've put in the template and what's in the filing don't match? Do you still notify the PTO at that point? Because usually we get a separate email saying, hey, is this correct, before we post that on that market notice.
So with the proposed process, because remember it was problem statement 1, we are requesting for you to submit that information to us. So we will still review, once that information is submitted and an IMS ticket is issued and comes to our group, we will review the information, implement the rates, and then send out the market notice. If you do find an error, of course, you can still send it directly to us, and we will look into it and address it.
Okay, but if the ISO finds error, are they notifying the PTO directly, or are they just?
No, we will notify you directly, that part of the process. So when we are reviewing that IMS ticket, if there are any questions or any clarifications that we may have, we will still continue to email you directly.
Okay, so we will still get that direct communication of back and forth if there is an issue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, looks like we have had another question come in.
Okay.
All right, your line's been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, and thank you very much for this information. With regards to the market notices, if you don't want to get, if you want to only have this specific notice come to you and not get all the other notices, can you share as to which of the categories that one has to subscribe to make sure that this notice comes through?
So the one that you will need, hold on. I think there is a way to limit which ones you want to subscribe to. We'll take that action item, follow up with our communications group, and send that follow-up out to everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Karen. That's a good reminder, too, for folks. We will be, we have recorded this session, and we will be posting this publicly on the website, and I'll share that for folks on the invite as well. So thanks, Karen.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No further questions over the line.
Thank you. So with that, what are our next steps? So the next step is we are requesting, of course, we want to implement this process as soon as possible. So we are requesting for comments to be submitted to wheelings@CAISO.com and by November 6th. And then, of course, we are going to work on documenting the proposed process and then providing the BPM updates through our PRR process so that we can formally document this process and then post. Once all of that is completed, provide the updates to everybody and post the related documents, so the process, the template, and the proposed schedule. And then for your reference, we have also provided you in the slide some of the BPM changes that we will likely propose as part of this process. These are very minor changes. It's really just, for example, with charge code 372, we're just striking out the currently. And then with 374, we're taking out the word whenever. Same here, we're just taking out the current process. There's some reference documents for you. And then we are open to any questions that you may have in regards to this process.
All right, I'm not seeing any questions over the line.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. We look forward to hearing your feedback. And again, we thank you for the opportunity to allow us to present to you our problem statements and our proposed process. We are hoping that by implementing this change, it will help smooth out the implementation of the TAC rate so that they can get in sooner rather than later. And then also we want to mention that we are hoping on implementing a process where this can be more refined, where instead of submitting currently we're asking you to submit the changes in a Excel template. Eventually we want to be able to get to the point where you can submit this data, for example, directly into MRIS or something like that. But those are still part of our long-term goals. So for now, we're just asking for the ability to, for you to submit the rate changes to us via an email or through an IMS ticket, and then that will help smooth the process out so that you can get your money and we can also process them as soon as possible. Thank you. Jimmy, back to you.
Thanks so much, Karen. And yeah, thanks again, folks, for joining the call, especially amidst current events, as mentioned. We really appreciate that. I look forward to this being posted publicly. Again, I'll be sharing that in the invite. And any further questions, as Karen mentioned, please feel free to submit. And we look forward to receiving your information and working with you moving forward. So with that, please have a great rest of your day.
All right, that concludes our conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Conferencing Enhanced. You may now disconnect.